Hello, I'm April Fields, and this is a chapter from my book called Divinity Disconnection. I sat on the park bench with a paper tree against my back, bark curved like unwritten histories blowing curled, papered fingers across my shoulders, and I looked out towards the streets of Byron Bay. Conversations fizzled in the heat of the day that held me. The full rouge of laughing lips touched sea air with outpressed intentions. Relaxation wore the face of youth, for there were young, swaying, salted hips rolling around and around the borders of this happening beach scene. Bikinis held on for dear life to aqueous bodies. Everyone seemed to be having a good time beneath the sun, the sand, and the sea. Musicians, they lined the streets and sat on the park grass beside me, gathered shade beneath the same tree as I. Our papered histories subconsciously entwined, harmonicas hung upon the lips of creamy beach boys as drums awaited the attentions of well-versed brown hands. I could hear the saxophone symphonies of the Pink Panther making its way towards me. Do-do, 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 do-do-do-do. The place was busy and young, with trendy little things that materialized like children before me who had no curfew for their curly hair. Handmade jewelry sprawled itself lavishly across the sand, just to bait their attentions as it shimmered beneath the sun. This picture of innocence showed me but a glimpse in that hand-crafted glimmer of what Australia really is. Another flash of perspective finds me in the form of a woman. As I sat on the park bench back against paper tree, making notes of my own personal history, pen upon my paper consolidating a version of you and a version of me. As I turned my vision out towards the sea, she approached. She was about 70 years old, with muddy skin tones that reminded me of my grandmother, with tatty clothes that rested lifeless on her skin and reminded me of my own. She held dark mysticisms in the glass bottle of her hand, stretching its deep shades out onto her skin and then further onto the shadows of the land, and she introduced herself to me with slurred speech. Alcoholic undertones sat heavily beneath the light of her breath as her introduction bore the title of an Aboriginal elder. She went on to ensure that I knew that the fat of my ass sat where her past, her own history, where her land now kept me. And yes, it was true that I did understand. I had heard the whispers of how her culture had been treated, stories that had been diluted in disassociation, though she wore the pains like a choker upon her neck because her reality would not be stepped away from so lightly. So I avoided a reaction of confrontation or desertion, and humbly I gave my thanks to her for sharing her land with me. But this moment of exchange in what two persons of respect should say, it felt empty. She seemed unhinged, as though ghosts lived inside of her, because her memories of what once were the best days of her mob's existence was now replaced by this young thing of Byron Bay. She slumped down next to me in acceptance of my peace and became lost in the wonderings of her mind. I made reacquaintance with my thoughts, and without further words our unified vision was lured into the horizon, where the sea shined for both of us without question. I had been in Byron Bay long enough to see that such meetings of similarity had been hunting me out. The brown of my skin was like a magnet to unspoken tribal alliances that looked respectfully upon my shades, and because of it, I was taken in with great haste. The disconnection of my past racism in my predominantly white childhood was now replaced with, "Hello, sister, come have a beer with us." And hey, I like drinking too, so I chugged it up. And so too did my sister Rita. We cheersed together on the park bench, for together we were made to feel welcome amongst our kin of the darker shades of skin. But as I sat with a black back against a paper tree looking out to the unified glimmer of the ocean while a slumped woman's beer bottle fell onto the echo of the concrete, I could not help but begin to feel the rough fingers of disappointment upon me. A younger version of me hung her pigtails in sadness as the wish of being taken in by those in spiritual communion with body and land was slowly vanquished. The yearning for learning magic and its entwinements with life began to fall from the grasp of my small, childish hands. That little girl within me walked away with her head hung low, for what she had repeatedly been shown was that the magic of this place had gone, been robbed, been given up upon. It had become clear that a people who once believed in dream time and divinity had now been reduced to stolen shopping carts and moonshine. Whilst they sat on the streets, with white people too, brown and yellow, we were all unbiasedly defeated as we sat cross-legged upon a concrete pathway that wept for us. But still there was a version of me that clung white-knuckled to the idea that people could still see a god in the scalding heat of the sun, that a goddess could still take form within the craterous wane of the moon, that the spirit could direct the people of which internal paths to tread, because I too had felt that same spirit inside of me. And I thought that maybe these people in communion with the land, that they could know me and I could know them, and we could be true brothers and sisters who put down our substances and spoke of dream time again. For my soul hungered for it. And I had heard the whispers of other souls wanting the same thing with similar hunger pains as I. I wanted to see those who could walk hand in hand with the four elements. I wanted to feel the fire upon the open of my palm. But instead, I leaned against a palm, upon a park bench with a dark bottle that rolled around on the ground beneath me. The ghost of my lips were upon it too. As I sat beside a woman slumped over into a far cry of what she could be, she searches the glimmer of the sea, though she cannot quite see that she has forgotten somehow her own divinity. However, I just walk away quietly, for who am I to say such things? The music played on in the background. The half side of a coin rolled itself into the godless sun. While Rita and we tried to have fun amidst the ugly things that stared us right in the browns of our faces. We slept homeless on the beaches, nestled away in hammocks that knew only how to sway. Tarps laid themselves upon the shore and offered a break from the cool hands of the night, but when we tried to dream, we were internally bullied, though we did not speak of it. There is a dominant thing that has no face, and sleeps in the shoes of giants upon the browns of our backs, and we become fearless of a faceless robber. We become small. We become drunk. And we become unconscious just as everyone else who is just trying to get through this, whatever this is at the time. And our unconsciousness, it becomes like a disease. And it spreads itself into all the versions of our beings until we are angry in our small boxes, sleeping out on the streets, with hands that push and shove at the cardboard edges because we all need to at least feel free, but there are self-imposed emotional prisons that we need to escape first. There is a responsibility that begs us to tend to it, but until we step up, the anger turns into hate. And the hate just breeds with hate until we are all inflicted, until we are all slumped over in our own worthlessness, until we cannot escape this unhappiness. And I see this in all kinds of eyes: blues, browns, blacks, greens. Upon many different shades, browns, whites, blacks, yellows, watered down intoxicants sit in the wet beige of our eyes as they roll, glossed over in empty wells, looking for new beginnings. There is a sort of fear that swells within us. So we just keep to our ways and we say nothing, however half of our spirit becomes missing. I love the idea of sacred soil. For all soil is sacred. And I am blown away with the power that the people can place within the red of the earth, within the breath that we can breathe into life itself, seedlings going wild with desire for birth, but numb, numb, numb. People are becoming numb. People are slumped over in defeat at disconnection with their true divinity. So who has the right? I found myself asking, on the park bench with a woman slumped over beside me. Alcohol keeps company, her breath, a paper tree with unwritten histories, is the only one standing strong enough to support my queries. So I ask it, who has the right to tell another being, a being of human experience, another human just simply being? Who has the right to suggest a better knowledge of their true path? And how could we govern such things? For we have been told what is right, what is wrong, what gods to pray to, which colours are of acceptable respect, whom to love and whom to hate, pillaged, raped, and pushed out of the land by transparent, puppeteering hands. And we clench, our own hands bound with the ghosts of forgotten past, because we are implored not to make a sound. So people have become quiet and lost. No rites of passage, no communion with the land. Who still plants trees anyway? Apparently that's an age-old thing that has passed us by, for we have disconnected from organic life. And I can see it around me every single day. I can see it also in an empty and intoxicated version of me. For I am not above these slouchings. I try to remain happy and to play, but these things, they quietly sadden me. They keep me up in the night in a hammock that sways in the cool breeze, as these things, they haunt me. So I did the only thing that I know how to do, and I joined the musicians that lined the streets. I sung soulfully and attempted to pulse out joy in a way that could help to understand the frequencies of love and fear, and to choose consciously which path to tread upon. Love is a much more of an alive thing than the sleeping dogs of the past. So I tried to lure that past as it passed me by, even if momentarily, into that frequency. I harmonized and tried on owning nothing and expecting even less. For I know only my truth. as I have heard the angels singing to me in the deep of the night when my liberation of ownership carried me upon harmonious winds, I have smelt lavender within the blossoming truth of my own life and connected to every fibre, to every fabric, unweighted by the peculiarities of division. Black, white, strong, weak, innocent, darkness, and light all rest under the skin of my existence amicably. Paper, bark histories. They are imprinted with versions of you and versions of me, where we are owning nothing but our contribution to existence. So I listened as the harmonica licked the wind's white-whipped teeth. I felt the pink panther crawling stealthily upon me, and I reverberated with the dark drumbeat of my own heart. It pulsed in light and too in dark rhythms, where I had only my contribution to keep. But I can see on the side of a faceless coin, shimmering with sides of duality. Only the bark listens to the queries of which I speak. I can see now that my little contribution, well, that is everything. Thank you. It's from my book, A Version of You, coming out soon. Peace.